Hello, all my peeps out there in YouTube land, all my folks in the chat room, all my lurkers, and all the folks that'll be watching it later on Memorex. Glad to have you with me today. The first day of September. Holy smoke, the year's flying by. First day, September 2016. It is a beautiful day here in Indiana today. Let's see. The sun is shining and it's in the mid 70s, so it's not too hot. And there's not nary a breeze a blowing at all, not one leaf flickering on the tree. September. Let's see if we can hush that. Oh my goodness gracious, it's going to be a nice day. I may go out and work in the garden a little bit today. A little bit growing out there. I've cleared a lot of it. You know, it's done for the year, but there's still a few things going, so I'll go out there and check on that today and see how things are going. We have lots and lots and lots of news for you today. But first, before I get into that, I'll tell you I did another story time last night. So anybody that wants to check out my other channel, the URL is down there in the description of this video, and you can go check out my story time videos. If all goes well, I should have an epic one for you tonight. I'm waiting for something to arrive in the mail today that's going to help me out with that some. So we'll see what happens. But just bear in mind, there's another one coming in the in the foreseeable future that's going to be one you won't want to miss. Oh gosh, let's see. Other than that, I guess there's not a whole heck of a lot going on around here today. Been kind of quiet. I started a new shawl on the big loom, and I've got a scarf going on one of the smaller looms, so that, you know, there's always projects going on here. We're going to get off into the news because I got a bunch of them for you today. Goodness. First one that I've got for you, this here is off of the businessinsider.com. It says a rocket space testing just exploded on the launch pad in Florida, and this just happened this morning. There's a picture of it in the URL there if you want to take a look at it. URLs that I'll talk about today are down there in the description of the video. And it says SpaceX was testing a Falcon 9 rocket at Cape Canaveral launch pad when it was rocked by powerful explosions, eyewitnesses report. SpaceX was scheduled to do a static test fire of 229-foot tall Falcon 9 rocket with no crew aborted on Thursday morning when it exploded shortly after 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Thursday, September the 1st, 2016. A static fire is when they test fire a rocket's engine without actually launching it into the air. The rocket itself and Facebook's Amos 6 satellite it was carrying. There were no reported injuries. And the quote here says, I just heard a boom and a bang. I looked out the window and the rocket was sort of bent at a 45-degree angle. I saw dirty black smoke and flames. A source who's employed at the company that does work at Cape Canaveral told the Business Insider. He asked to remain anonymous due to security concerns. He was within 5 miles of the launch pad and said the blast reminded him of a giant fuel exploding. It was like video game cut scene. I will never forget that image. According to Shannon Butler, a WFTV Channel 9 reporter in Florida, the test ended in what is technically called a catastrophic abort. The aerospace company owned by Elon Musk confirmed on Twitter that in preparation for today's static fire, there was an anomaly on the pad resulting in the loss of the payload. Per standard procedure, the pad was clear and there were no injuries. We also contacted SpaceX for details about the blast, but representatives for the company did not immediately respond. A representative at NASA's in Cape Canaveral told Business Insider that its environmental health unit is monitoring the air quality to ensure it's safe for employees. Several employee we spoke with said the test was standard shot fire test to verify proper engine functioning. They partially fuel it up just to verify there's no anomalies with the engine. It's on the pad, ready to go, he said. These rockets actually have bolts that will detonate and let the rocket go once they know everything is good to go, but they don't fire the bolts with this test. They just get the engines good and hot, then they cut them off. However, he said the first explosion happened at least 5 minutes before the engines were supposed to briefly ignite. The explosion propagated from the center of the rocket, from what I saw, he said. After the initial explosion, he said a second went off. I'm still shaking, he said. The rocket itself, according to one source, was not the recycled one that is supposed to carry the SES-10 satellite into orbit later this year. And then it goes on, it says, eyewitnesses on Twitter are reporting the test ended with several powerful explosions that rocked the area. Scott Guston, a national content editor for Tribune Broadcasting, had a crisp view of the huge blaze. And there's a picture of that in this article if you want to see it. Well, one eyewitness reported the blast shook his office building. And he says, wow, SpaceX rocket just blew up on the pad, shook our whole building. And there's some video in this if you want to see that. So, you know, that's the story that took place this morning down in Florida, which I'm kind of surprised about given the fact that they're, you know, and having a hurricane down there or something. Mercy. The next one we have here is off SputnikNews.com. Erdogan plays U.S. and Russia. And I'm trying to get it to scroll down here a little bit. There we go. Says for at least 2 years, Turkey's recap Tayyip Erdogan has been pushing to set up safe zones in northern Syria. This week, warplanes and special forces commandeered Syrian territory. The Ankara government seems at least to be fulfilling this objective. Not only that, but the Turkish president managed to get Washington on board while appearing to circumnavigate any obstacles that Russia or its Syrian ally might have been expected to mount to such unprecedented intervention. As warplanes provided air cover as Ankara, I guess it's pronounced, back to Syrian militants took over the border town of Jarablus from Daesh. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and Ankara on the first day of the assault vowed Washington's full support in Operation Euphrates Shield. Erdogan said that the operation had a two-pronged aim of cleansing the border area of Daesh terrorists as well as pushing anti-Daesh Kurdish fighters back east across the Euphrates to their stronghold in northeast. The Kurdish militia, mainly comprised of People's Protection Units, or YPG, also referred to as Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, have up to now been supported by Washington. American patronage seemed to be in doubt this week as Biden issued a stern warning that U.S. support would be terminated if the Kurds did not retreat eastward. Russia and the Syrian government in Damascus were not passively watching the unfolding events. The Russian Foreign Ministry stated that it was very concerned by Turkey's military escalation. The Syrian authorities went further and condemned the cross-border deployment was a flagrant violation of sovereignty. Russia and Syria have every right to be alarmed. Erdogan's rhetoric claiming that the retaking of Jarablus was to defeat the terrorists and to protect the territorial integrity of Syria. The inescapable fact is that Turkish forces, with U.S. support, have installed their proxy militants in control of a Syrian town and surrounding territory. Turkey says that it wants to establish a safe zone along the Syrian side of the border, stretching 100 kilometers and 30 kilometers deep. It is not clear that the Turkish military will stay on Syrian territory to enforce this zone. They might withdraw and designate the task to Ankara-backed Syrian militants comprised of the so-called Free Syrian Army and Turkish fighters. These militants are supposedly in operation to Daesh jihadists, but their primary objective is to wage war against the Syrian government of President Bashar Assad and his foreign allies, Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah. The carving out this week of a safe zone around Jarablus by Turkish and American military has to also be coupled with the declaration by the Pentagon last week, warning that its warplanes would shoot down any Syrian or Russian aircraft in the easterly town of Haska, where U.S. Special Forces are said to be fielded. Taken together, this is tantamount to the setting up of 2 U.S. Turkish-controlled safe zones over the past week. That is a dramatic development in nearly 6-year Syrian conflict, whereby foreign forces are now actively commandeering swatches of Syria's territory without any legal mandate. One may well ask, how did it come to this, where Turkish and American military, both NATO members, are conducting combat operations on the ground and in the air on Syrian territory? And moreover, these foreign forces are assigning what are in effect no to the Syrian government and its Russian allies. Rutgers reports report gives this context to the U.S.-Turkish operation. And Turkish officials said that the ground incursion had been in the works for more than 2 years, but had been delayed by U.S. reservations, resistance from some Turkish commanders, and a standoff with Russia, which had made impossible. The standoff with Russia refers to deadly shooting down of a Russian warplane last November by Turkish F-16s over Syrian territory due to Moscow's anger over that stab in the back. As President Putin called it at the time, Turkish warplanes had not dared enter Syrian territory since then. This week's incursion was the first time since November that Turkish aircraft had crossed into Syrian territory. The Rutgers report added Turkey had made the case more strongly to Washington over the past few months, had patched up relations with Russia, and had removed some Turkish commanders from the post after finding they were involved in the coup attempt, paving the way for the operation to go ahead, Turkish officials said. This raises the testing question: is Wiley both the American and Russians to pull off what has been Ankara's long-held objective, namely to set up safe zones inside Syria? Coup in Turkey on July the 15th, Erdogan surprised many analysts by offering a sudden rapprochement with Moscow, laying up accusations against Washington that it may have had some hand in the coup attempt. In a seeming standoff with his American ally, Erdogan also began seeking rapprochement with Iran and even issued overtures for a detente with the Syrian government after years of labeling President Assad a butcher who had to surrender power. In recent weeks, Erdogan has called for a new anti-terror front involving Russia and Iran, as well as the U.S. Russia and Iran appeared to welcome Turkey's seeming change of priorities away from pushing regime change in Syria and instead focusing on combating terrorist brigades. Last week's bombing atrocity in Turkey, southern city in which 54 people were killed allegedly by jihadists, was invoked by Ankara as a tipping point for its military action in Syria this week. Again, that sequence tends to bolster Erdogan's claim of taking on terrorists. Given Washington's back foot over Erdogan's insinuations that it had somehow concluded in the failed coup and had given the Turkish president conciliatory overtures to Moscow, Tehran, and Damascus, it would appear that Ankara on the geopolitical flux in order to prosecute its abiding interest in Syria, to carve out territories that proxies can control. In short, Erdogan is trying to blindside all the players. What is Ankara seeking to gain? The notion that Erdogan is serious about defeating terrorism in Syria has to be taken with a pinch of salt. His regime and Turkish military intelligence have been crucial sponsors and facilitators for a myriad of terrorist militias, including the so-called Free Syrian Army and the more overtly Al-Qaeda linked to jihadists. They are all part of the covert war in Syria that Turkey has fomented. Felt a sneeze coming on. Sorry. They are all part of the covert war for regime change in Syria that Turkey has fomented since 2011, along with the U.S., Britain, France, and regional partners like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Israel. The jihadists displaced this week from Jarablus, like the brigades displaced earlier this month from Manjib, seem to have disappeared, but to where? The biggest picture here is that Syria, Russian, Iranian, and Hezbollah forces have over the past year inflicted massive defeats on the foreign-backed regime change proxies. The momentous battle underway in Aleppo of a terminal defeat for the regime change covert war. For Turkey, setting up safe havens in north of Aleppo is a vital way to regroup and retool the jihadist mercenaries. The real meaning to this Operation Shield. So there you have the information on what Erdogan's trying to pull off over there. The next one we have is off of the gatewaypundit.com, and it says to Mexico City in an unmarked plane. And I have another article that goes along with this, so it's going to be kind of a 2-for-1 with this. It says, let's see how this goes. Considering the death threats he has received from prominent Mexican drug lord, it was a smart move. Donald Trump usually likes to make an entrance with great fanfare. Not so on Wednesday, when Trump, accompanied by a small entourage, flew to Mexico for a historic high-stakes meeting with Mexican President Enrique Pena Nieto. The Trump campaign originally aimed to get the GOP nominee into the country under the radar before news of the meeting broke to the press. Sources involved like that security concerns voiced by Mexican officials and U.S. Secret Service further impacted the decision to leave behind Trump's signature Boeing 757 emblazoned with Trump in huge gold letters. Joined by senior staff, RNC Chairman Reince Priebus, Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani opted for a smaller unmarked commercial jet for the quick trip to the Mexican capital. Trying to get this to scroll down a little bit. There is this if you want to see the video involved with it. And the next one that I have here, gatewaypundit.com, and it says, despite death threats, Donald Trump flies to Mexico to meet with President Nieto. And as in July 2015, top Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo threatened U.S. presidential hopeful Donald Trump. Guzman took his son's Twitter account to threaten the popular America First candidate. On the account administered by Guzman's son Ivan, reportedly wrote, "If you keep," and that's blanked out, "me off, make you eat your words, you blank blonde milk blank." They have the actual picture of it, but it's in Spanish, and it says Trump reported FBI after threatening tweets on the drug lord's son's Twitter account. On May 2016, a protester outside a Trump event in San Diego held a sign saying the drug cartel will murder Donald Trump. And there is a picture of that if you want to see it on this URL. It says, despite these threats on Wednesday, Donald Trump will travel to Mexico City to meet with President Enrique Pena Nieto. Reported Donald Trump will travel to Mexico City on Wednesday for a meeting with Mexican President Enrique Pena Nieto, just hours before he delivers a high-stakes speech in Arizona to clarify his views on immigration policy. Pena Nieto invited both Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton to visit Mexico, his office said in a statement provided to the Washington Post on Tuesday night. Kennedy decided over the weekend to accept the invitation and push for a visit this week, according to the people in the United States and Mexico familiar with the discussions. Late Tuesday, Trump and Mexican president confirmed on Twitter that they will meet Wednesday. There is a link that you can click to read more up on that if you'd like to know more. And then the next one that I have, thebusinessinsider.com, says, Mexican president, I told Trump we're not paying for his proposed wall. Mexican President Enrique Pena Nieto said on Wednesday that Mexico would not be paying for Donald Trump's proposed wall along the southern border of the U.S. after his meeting with GOP presidential nominee. At the beginning of my conversation with Donald Trump, I made it clear that Mexico would not pay for the wall, Pena Nieto tweeted. In the day that he and Pena Nieto didn't discuss who will pay for the wall, a key part of the real estate's immigration platform. The campaign released a statement suggesting that Trump's meeting was a flop. It turns out that Trump got beat in the room and lied about it. Hillary for America chairman John Podesta said in his statement. Read the full statement from Podesta here, and what it says is Donald Trump has made his outlandish policy of forcing Mexico to pay for his giant wall the centerpiece of his campaign. But the first opportunity to make good on his offensive campaign promises, Trump choked. What we saw today from a man who claims to be the ultimate deal maker is that he doesn't have the courage to advocate for his campaign promises when he's not in front of a friendly crowd. We know who he is. After today's trip, we still know where Trump stands: an immigration plan that would deport 16 million people in birthright citizenship, repeal DACA, DAPA, and build a $25 billion wall and stick the American taxpayers with the bill. Trump's position on immigration has been unclear since he made remarks that his stance could be softened after taking a strong stance on deporting millions of undocumented immigrants from the U.S. The billionaire's campaign attempted to clarify in a statement late on Wednesday. Part of the decision and a relationship builder between Mr. Trump and President Pena Nieto, Jason Miller, Trump's senior communications advisor, said. It was not a negotiation, and that would have been inappropriate. It is unsurprising that they hold two different views on this issue, and we look forward to continuing the conversation, he added. The GOP candidate will deliver an immigration speech on Wednesday night in Phoenix, Arizona. And they have a video of Hillary rip Trump up, if you want to watch that. The next one that I have here, GOPthedailydose.com. And this one says, bombshell. Threatened to have Attorney General off of there. Try that again. Bombshell. Bill Clinton to have Attorney General Lynch killed if she indicted Hillary. Oh, it's trying to take me someplace I don't want to go. Good golly. Websites jump around like this. Okay. General Loretta Lynch was threatened by Bill Clinton, according to a Department of Justice source, which then set in motion a ridiculous chain of events that culminated in Hillary Clinton being let off the hook, despite FBI Director James Comey essentially stating that the chain of events was so ridiculous that and I wish this thing would stop jumping on it. I have no idea what I go through to bring you guys the news. All right, I think I got that stuff stopped. Chain of events was so ridiculous that the belly-girded Attorney General Loretta Lynch even attempted a joke, saying that she wished she knew where the lock on the plane door was when Bill Clinton was striding along the tarmac toward the plane. Well, happy that the meeting suddenly, after the meeting, suddenly we had a whole new strategy and things moved fast. I can't even repeat some of the things that they put on here. And we have another ad coming up. Isn't that just special? Okay, we'll get rid of that. I can't believe people can't see it for what it was. It's so obvious and ridiculous, the Department of Justice insider said. It was just a mess in the department. Everybody, including the FBI, did a U-turn. Congressman John Mica also referred to the fishy nature of the chain of events while questioning FBI Director John Comey about the scandal representatives. My folks think there is something fishy about this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of questions on how this came down. And move up here a little bit. The moment the unwanted meeting between the Attorney General and Bill Clinton was over, the wheels started whirring at high speed, and the mechanism to get Hillary off the hook were set in rapid motion. The FBI interviewed Hillary Clinton without placing her under oath and without recording the interview. Obama campaigned with Hillary on Air Force One to distract attention. Then the FBI said that Hillary was guilty in their eyes, but recommended against pressing charges. After the Attorney General was allegedly threatened, Hillary was free to continue her White House push despite clearly being guilty of some of the same crimes Edward Snowden has been charged with. An officer who has been locked in a legal battle with his service after self-reporting improperly disseminated classified information on a much lesser scale than Clinton is now demanding the same treatment Hillary received. There's one set of rules for us and another set for everybody else. I don't think any of that really surprises anybody, but there it is in print. The next one we have is bizpackreview.com. And it says, Clinton aides bashed Hillary's email policy is outrageous, unbelievable, in secret email to each other. There's 3 months into her term as Secretary of State, 2 of Hillary Clinton's top aides bluntly call her indiscriminate release of her address outrageous and unbelievable, according to an April 2009 email chain obtained by the Daily Caller News Foundation. The email indicates that very early into her term as the country's top diplomat, aides were scandalized by their boss's indifference towards email security. This is so unbelievable. She should not be giving her email to everyone, said Chief of Staff Cheryl Mills in an April 3rd, 2009 email exchange with Deputy Chief of Staff Huma Abedin, however you want to pronounce it. Don't get me started, stated Abedin. Personally, I think it's outrageous. The blunt talk by her closest aides cast embarrassing new light on the issue of Clinton's cavalier attitude about email and government information security in the aftermath of FBI Director James Comey's recent refusal to recommend an indictment. Clinton's presidential campaign has been plagued for more than a year by revelations of official Department of State's meetings Clinton held with wealthy donors from the Clinton Foundation. Use of the private email system linked to the foundation's server at her New York residence to facilitate the meetings is now fueling calls among some Democrats and influential liberal media outlets for the foundation to be shuttered if she becomes president, including Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump, favor appointment of a special prosecutor. Abedin also complained in the April email exchange that Clinton took her unsecured BlackBerry cell phone everywhere. Abedin wanted an IT staffer to fix the automatic forwarding of her old Senate emails to her boss, but it would require the staff to get their hands on the berry, as it was known to Clinton's inner circle. The emails were obtained by the conservative group Citizens United in an August 15th court-ordered release of Clinton's communications with her staff, which were captured on her personal email server. Clinton's insistence on using a BlackBerry caused near rebellion by the National Security Administration and the Bureau of Diplomatic Security. They objected to her use of an unsecured cell phone within the confines of her highly secured office and within the State Department's headquarters in Washington, D.C. The security agency and FBI officials demanded a meeting in February 2009, email chain released earlier this year by Judicial Watch. Why doesn't she use her desktop when in the office, asked Donald R. Reed, who is the State Department Senior Coordinator for Security Infrastructure for the Bureau of Diplomatic Security. He noted Clinton's displeasure with the current no BlackBerry in the SCIF rule. The SCIF refers to Secretary of State's secured office. May 8, 2016, DCNF reported on a disposition of top Department of State official by Judicial Watch noted that Mills had said the problem is HRC does not know how to use a computer to do emails, only BlackBerry. HRC refers to Hillary Rodham Clinton. Her aides also challenged Clinton's judgment about appointing unqualified people to a sensitive security post. The trigger was email sent to Clinton by an unnamed Department of State appointee she had sponsored for security position. The appointee apparently failed, and he directly appealed to the Secretary of State for assistance. Clinton instructed Abedin and Mills, could you follow up on this? Abedin did not believe the staffer could be appointed to any vacant post. HRC shared email with me the other day and asked if there was any way he could be steered to something else, Abedin told Mills. However, I still don't know where you put him. Former U.S. Attorney Joseph Genova told the DCNF that the aide's comments show she started her carelessness early on, shows the reaction of her staff. They can't believe she's conducting herself this way. David N. Bossie, president of Citizens United, told DCNF, this new email brings many troubling questions to mind. Just how easy was it to get access to Hillary Clinton's email address? He also questioned the propriety of trying to place her person to the Department Security Bureau, which has traditionally been staffed entirely with non-political career employees. Clinton taking personal interest in placing someone in the State Department's Bureau of Diplomatic Security, Bossie said. A spokesman for the Clinton campaign did not respond to a request for comment by the DCNF. So there you have that on the emails. The next one I thought was really important to report on, because there's been a lot of scuttlebutt and chatter about this ammunition thing going on the last few days. ATF delays any changes to nitrocellulose regulation. A lot of people have been scared that they weren't going to be able to get ammo anymore, and everybody needs to run out and stockpile and this, that, and the other thing. So this should clarify it for you. Earlier this summer, ATF released an explosives industry newsletter that changed the agency's treatment of nitrocellulose. The primary component is smokeless powders used in modern ammunition. This change will seriously disrupt ammunition supply to the United States because it changed a long-standing ATF policy that exempted properly wetted nitrocellulose from treatment as an explosive under federal law. The NRA raised these concerns to ATF, and any change in ATF's treatment of nitrocellulose is now officially delayed. In the addendum to the earlier newsletter, ATF announced that it will conduct further industry outreach concerning wetted nitrocellulose. In the interim, previously authorized industry practices concerning wetted nitrocellulose will not be affected. While it doesn't indicate that ATF has permanently abandoned this change to nitrocellulose regulation, smokeless powder manufacturers will be permitted to continue normal operation, at least for the time being. NRA will continue to work to ensure that any future change to nitrocellulose regulation will not affect ammunition supply. So there you have that, and I will add a disclaimer to this that they did mention, for the time being. So if you find a need that you are low on ammo, you need some more ammo, you have funds to purchase some more ammo that you need, I'd suggest you go ahead and do it, because we don't know what the future holds. But I'm not saying to run out like Chicken Little, that the sky is falling and big chunk of it's landed on your head and when it's just an apple falling out of a tree. Don't run around losing your mind over things. Just be cautious, be prepared. Thing that I have for you is off of bizpackreview.com. I'm waiting for it to decide to come on up here. It says Obama has allowed BLM Black Power agenda to fundamentally transform American schools. We have proof. If you think Black Lives Matter movement is passing fringe, the following video is going to scare the hell out of you. Now, I'm not going to play the video, but you can watch it if you want to in your own time, because the URL is down there in the description of the video. And it says, according to one teacher from New York who was compelled to expose the blatant liberal brainwashing being imposed on teachers and students alike, says, our schools are no longer part of the solution, but have become part of the problem. Our children to hate and distrust not only police officers, but America itself. Uncommon Schools, a network of public charter schools in New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, and has documented some experiences in video for the world to see. Experiences you would never know by reading the website. It starts with the teacher's orientation, which was as red as it gets. To kick off, all teachers were given a t-shirt with the words love and revolution emblazoned on the front, along with student raising banner of the Black Panther movement. The first presentation included a quote by world-renowned lover, poet, musician, and all-around Mother Teresa type, Che Guevara, the man with the Marxist plan for Argentina, who said the true revolution is guided by a great feeling of love. It was all downhill from there. Presented with a slide that read, definition of revolution, a forcible overthrow of government or social order in favor of a new system. How do you see your work as this kind of revolution? One presenter talked about the 1967 Newark rioters, the ones who got 26 people killed, hundreds injured, and left a path of looting and destruction that affected thousands of lives for years as being part of the revolution, and the National Guardsmen who restored order as oppressors. The teachers broke up into small groups, decompression sessions, where the whites among them had to own up to their white privilege. Finally, the conference ended with everyone standing in a giant circle with their fists in the air chanting love and revolution over and over again. The video records the chant, and it's definitely as creepy as it sounds, which begs the question, revolution against who? The teacher found the answers when she attended a cross-regional conference in Brooklyn a month later. She recorded a discussion about police brutality that continues to plague this nation, and we cannot here without acknowledging what has happened. Thunderous applause after that. One sixth grade teacher who identified himself as Scott talked about hearing about the Dallas shootings and hoping against hope that it wasn't a black man, and when he found out it might serve as justification for everything that has happened in the past, things that are happening now, and then like have future justification for things that might happen later on. Our undercover teacher laments, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Here was a teacher justifying hate against police officers. One black teacher speaking at the conference said, if you do not think your job is connected to social justice in the streets and you are silent, you are part of the problem. If you are a person, the teacher continued, then who, when confronted with these issues, start talking about black on black crime or comparing Black Lives Matter with All Lives Matter, you are part of the problem. And frankly, you need to be fired. The conference showed speeches from Democratic National Convention as if they were training sessions and showed blatant hostility toward Trump and mainstream America, including a seminar on the rise and danger of neoconservatism. The video ends with the following pertinent question. How can this be going on in public school? Is taxpayer really paying $17,000 per student per year to have them indoctrinated with anti-police rhetoric? How can public school receiving federal funding so blatantly align themselves with Black Lives Matter movement? How can someone who is supposed to be non-political so openly promote the Democratic Party and at the same time demonize Donald Trump and mainstream America? Watch the video and share it far and wide. The taxpaying public needs to know. That's how the article ends. So, there you have that. And I still say, don't support public schools, homeschool your kids. But that's just my 2 cents worth. The next one we have here Alarming. It says on usatoday.com, Chicago begins building fitness tracker to check its vitals. The city has begun installing what sounds and looks a whole lot like a Fitbit that can measure the vitals of a bustling metropolis. Chicago, which partnered on the project with researchers at the University of Chicago and Argonne International Laboratory and several corporations last week, installed the first of two 500 modular sensor boxes. The devices will eventually allow the city and public to block by block data on air quality, noise levels, as well as vehicular and pedestrian traffic. The project, dubbed the Array of Things and described by Chicago officials as a fitness tracker for the city, is first of its kind in an effort nation. Plans are in the works to replace the project or to replicate the project in the coming years in more than a dozen other cities, including Atlanta, Chattanooga, Seattle. The Chicago project was funded with the help of $3 million National Science Foundation grant. 5 years out, if we're successful, this data and the applications and tools that will grow out of it will be embedded in the lives of residents and the way new services and policies. Chicago's Chief Information Officer, Brenda Berman, told USA Today it will be viewed as a utility, the same way we view our streetlights and the way we view our buses. They are there for us, and they help us get through the city more easily. They are just part of our everyday life. This article, and it's there if you want to read up on it. But this is how they indoctrinate us. You see how this works? I mean, it's for your own good. And we're going to install this in other cities. And just look at it like you would your electric company or your local bus company in your city. And it's nothing to be alarmed about. We're just, going to install these things so that we can measure the air quality and keep everybody safe. Yeah, right. This is how it starts. And we've seen this kind of behavior before. This is right out of 1984 book. Man, oh man. So there you have that article. I mean, I can't say by it, but nonetheless, I'm shocked. I guess I'm more shocked at the way that they try to shove it down our throats and make us believe that it's for our good. The next article I have is, this is off the dailymail.co.uk. And it says, is Earth being contacted by aliens? Mysterious radio signals coming from a sun-like star baffle scientists. Radio signals coming from the direction of sun-like star has excited astronomers. The signal seems to be originating from a star known as HD 164595 in the constellation Hercules, around 95 light years away. Scientists suggest that they are likely to be a result of natural phenomenon such as microlensing, in which the star's gravity strengthens and from elsewhere. But astronomers have also asked SETI, which stands for Search for I'm tongue-tied today. Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, to take a closer look at whether they could be a message from ET. SETI will track HD 164595 using the Allen Telescope Array in Northern California and the Bosquet Optical SETI Observatory in Panama. According to a report by Paul Glister at the Centauri Dreams, the signal was first detected on May the 15th last year by the Rattan 600 radio telescope. Oh gosh, I don't know. This is a 75-cent one. Zelenchukskiba. I'm going to guess. It's in Russia. HD 164595 is interesting to scientists because it is similar to our own sun and has at least one warm Neptune planet in its orbit. The average temperature is 12 Kelvin hotter, and it's around 100 million years younger than our star. Scientists say that there may still be other planets undetected around HD 164595. No one is claiming that this is the work of extraterrestrial civilization, but it is certainly worth further study, writes Glister. And then there's a little side note here. It says, what else could it be? A star or planet can act as cosmic lens to magnify and brighten more distant star or signal lined up behind it. That's because the gravitational field of the foreground star bends and focuses light, like a glass lens bending and focusing starlight in a telescope. Predicted this effect in his theory of general relativity and confirmed it with our sun. Scientists believe the latest signals could be the result of this microlensing effect in which the star's gravity strengthens and focuses signals from farther away. So there you have that little interesting tidbit. I'm doubting seriously that it comes from aliens. It would be interesting to know exactly what the noise is that was heard. The next one that we have, view. And this is your chuckle for the day. It's not the last article, but it is your chuckle for the day. I thought everybody deserved a chuckle. And if you don't laugh about this, there's something wrong with you. Obamacare architect of all people says Hillary is one of the most transparent candidates in history. Now, if that didn't make you laugh, I don't know what will. It says the word transparent does not readily come to mind when describing Hillary Clinton, but for Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, architect of Obamacare and brother of former Obama Chief of Staff Farham Emanuel, Clinton is one of the most transparent candidates in history, quote unquote. It's always crazy in this campaign, Emanuel told MSNBC Rachel Maddow on Monday, where Donald Trump asked Hillary Clinton to release more information, and she's been one of the most transparent candidates in history, including on medical history. And he was being serious. Emanuel criticized GOP nominee Donald Trump for not being forthcoming with his own personal records while demanding Clinton release hers. So there you have that. And if you didn't laugh, I don't know what's wrong with you. Might need to see a doctor. The next one I have is off of dailygood.org. This is your feel good or inspirational. I think inspirational would probably be the best word for it. Eli Wiesel's Nobel acceptance speech. And it's won the Nobel Prize. It says, we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. In 1986, at the age of 58, Romanian-born Jewish-American writer and political activist Eli Wiesel, and he lived from September the 30th of 1928 through July the 2nd of 2016. Says, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Committee called him a messenger to mankind. Wiesel lived up to that moniker with exquisite eloquence on December the 10th that year, exactly 90 years after Alfred Nobel died, as he took the stage at Norway's Oslo City Hall and delivered a spectacular speech on justice, oppression, and our individual responsibility and our shared freedom. This address was eventually included in Eli Wiesel's Message for Peace in the public library. 3 decades later, Wiesel's words ring with discomfiting timelessness as we are jolted out of our generational hubris, out of illusion of progress, forced to confront the realities of racism, torture, and other injustices against human experience. But alongside the reminder of how tragically we have failed Wiesel's vision is also the promise of possibility, reminding us that what soaring heights of human spirit are capable of reaching if we choose to feed not our lowest impulses, but our most exalted. Above all, Wiesel issued an assurance that these choices are not grandiose and reserved for those in power, but daily, deeply personal, found in the quality of intention with which we each live our lives. With the hard-earned wisdom of his own experience as Holocaust survivor, memorably recounted his Ionic memoir, Night. Weasel extols our duty to speak up against injustice even when the world retreats into the hideout of silence. And here is an excerpt from it. It says, I remember it happened yesterday, or these, and I wish my tongue would work with me today. I'll start that again. I remember it happened yesterday, or in eternities ago. A young Jewish boy discovered the kingdom of night. I remember his bewilderment. I remember his anguish. It all happened so fast. The ghetto, the deportation, the sealed cattle car, the fiery altar upon which the history of our people and our future of mankind were meant to be sacrificed. I remember he asked his father, can this be true? This is the 20th century, not the Middle Ages. Who would allow such crimes to be committed? How could the world remain silent? And now the boy is turning to me. Tell me, he asked, what have you done with my future? What have you done with your life? And I tell him that I have tried to keep the memory alive, that I have tried to fight those who would forget. Because if we forget, we're guilty. We are accomplices. And then I explained to him how naive we were, that the world did know and remained silent. And that is why I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Whenever men or women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at the moment, become the center of the universe. Wiesel reminds us that even politically momentous dissent always begins with personal act, with a single voice refusing to be silent. And then it goes on and it says, there is much injustice and suffering crying out for our attention, victims of hunger, racism, and political persecution, writers and poets, prisoners in so many lands governed by left and by right. Human rights are being violated on every continent. More people are oppressed than free. There is much to be done. There is much that can be done. One person of integrity can make a difference of life and death. As long as one dissident is in prison, our freedom will not be true. As long as one child is hungry, our lives will be filled with anguish and shame. What all these victims need above all is to know that they are not alone, that we are not forgetting them, that when their voice is stifled, we shall lend them ours. That's while their freedom depends on ours. The quality of our freedom depends on theirs. This is what I say to the young Jewish boy wondering what I have done with his years. It is in his name that I speak to you and that I express to you my deepest gratitude. No one is capable of gratitude as one who has emerged from the kingdom of night. We know that every moment is a moment of grace. Every hour is an offering. Not to share them would mean to betray them. Our lives no longer belong to us alone. They belong to all those who need us desperately. So there you have those words from that eloquent gentleman, Eli Wiesel. And I think that that should be a lesson to everybody. You may just be one person, but you are one voice. And if you see injustice, if you see something that needs to be righted, you need to try to find a way to fix it or to help fix it or to lend your voice to it. Don't be silent about it and let people know. You can start by sharing this video today. That'd be a good start. It may not be a big leap, but it's a start. So share the video, give it a thumbs up if you like what we did today. And I sure appreciate all my viewers, whether you're a chatter, whether you're a lurker, or whether you're a Memorex viewer. Glad to have you with me. I hope you have a wonderful day. Go out, stick your feet in the grass. Kick them shoes off, buddy. Put your toes right down there in the grass and curl them up and take a nice deep breath of fresh air and balance yourself. It's all about being balanced. So we'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.